Hello, 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 amazing human beings on planet Earth. My name is Marcella Hammer. I am the resident unicorn and COO of Palette Community here in the Capital Region. And Palette is a co working and community space that supports women in business, but really, we support everybody. We love everyone. And I am so excited to be here with you. It's the afternoon, YWCA viewers, and this is Series 3, Episode 6 of The Butterfly Effect, sponsored by KeyBank and Pursuit. KeyBank's Foundation's mission is to support organizations and programs that prepare individuals for thriving futures. When people and organizations come together, great work gets done. And our entire region thrives, and you know we're all about that. KeyBank thanks everyone at the YWCA Northeastern New York for making a difference. Pursuit provides businesses with affordable loans and resources so that they can transform and grow. They're an Albany-based, community-focused lender, 100% invested in the success of their clients. And if you are a small business owner looking for funds to start, grow, or recover, you can learn more at www.pursuitlending.com. We cannot thank these two amazing businesses enough for their support, not only this month, but year-round. And this is an empowerment series where volunteer hosts interview inspiring women in our community. Today, we have Anna Lalaway, who is the Executive Director of Saratoga Shredders. Welcome, Anna.
Thank you, Marcella. It's a pleasure to be here.
Full disclosure, I'm so excited to be a part of this, and I'm also part of the board of Saratoga Shredders. So this is very much a labor of love conversation, and I'm excited for all of the viewers to have a chance to get to know what the Saratoga Shredders do. It has nothing to do with shredding paper, just so you know. And to get a little bit a better sense of who you are, Anna, because you are not just Saratoga Shredders, you're just so much more. So, okay, tell us a bit about yourself. Who are you?
Sure. Well, thank you. Let's see. I currently live in Saratoga, Saratoga Springs, and was born and raised in Cape Cod, so nearby. And I did my undergrad in majored in geology, and then went on to my doctorate work. Lived in Alaska for a year, and then went on to do my doctorate work at Cambridge in the UK, where I received a master's and a PhD, and looked at the glacial sediments of the Arctic areas, so Iceland and Arctic Svalbard, Arctic Norway, before starting to work with the British Antarctic Survey, working on the climate change science in the Antarctic regions. So I spent about a decade working in the Arctic and the Antarctic, doing climate change research, and then moved back to the US and was in Boston for a couple of years, where my first daughter was born, and Sophie, who's now 12. And then moved to Saratoga about 10 years ago. So I've been in Saratoga for 10 years now, which is crazy. And in those first few years, was certainly spending the bulk of my time raising my children. And I started this new sport of mountain biking at that time while the kids were little, as a kind of new thing in my life as a stay-at-home mom. And then I became obsessed with the sport of mountain biking and did it as much as I possibly could to a fairly high level of racing in the Northeast. And then went back to work. So I've started a second career. My career is with a company called Arcadis. I'm an environmental consultant with Arcadis, and currently working in a global sustainability role, being the program manager for community programs across Arcadis. We're a global company with about 33,000 employees, and we operate in 40 different countries. And my current task is to figure out what's going on across the entire company, volunteer-wise, with the company, with the different community programs that everybody is involved in addition to doing some of my client-facing work, which is helping clients to achieve their sustainability goals. So that's my day job. And have always been involved in kind of women in science and women in STEM throughout my academic career. And then when I went back to work a couple of years ago, started this organization called Saratoga Shredders, which is what we're going to be talking about mostly today. And I'd like to thank you, Marcella, for not only being on the board, for being the president of our board, the first president of our board. So your enthusiasm and attention to and experience with business in the area, and bringing the enthusiasm that you bring to our board is just fantastic. So thank you.
Thank you. I can't express how much I love the Shredders and love mountain biking. And I feel like this kind of ties back to the theme of the butterfly effect for this month, not necessarily with housing, even though the planet Earth is our home. And so therefore you completely, I feel like, are encompassing that part of the conversation, but really with gratitude. And I'm not just thankful for mountain bikes because they're fun, but I'm so thankful for this organization and the way that I can witness it impact children. So just to kind of like quickly state this for anyone watching and isn't familiar, Saratoga Shredders started as all girls, all mentors, pre-K through 5th grade, and has now expanded into an additional co-ed program that's 4th through 12th grade. And so like this woman here, Anna, has all of these kids on bikes with all of these volunteers, including myself, who are teaching these kids confidence and a lifelong love of sports. And it's kind of the best time ever. I promise this whole thing isn't just going to be trying to get everyone on mountain bikes and all of your children too.
Well, yeah, no, and I think, the bike is really the conduit to all the things that the girls and now boys are learning, right? And it's a matter of, it's the very tangible thing of literally facing your fears, like looking at that log in front of you and deciding whether you're going to try and go up and over it or not, right? And just the empowerment that provides in your everyday life, right? Like these kids are going back home. The girls are, when we started girls only the first 2 years, and these girls are going home and teaching their brothers and their dads how to put their chains back on their bikes and how to lube the chain. And they're teaching them kind of classically, something that's very male dominated in terms of the mechanics of a bike. They're able to then to communicate with the brothers and the parents in their house how to fix a bike, which is pretty empowering. And then that also it's very confidence inspiring, right? If they are able to try something new and they succeed at it, or don't succeed initially and then come back and try it again the next week. Just the confidence that's built with these kids, especially in these last couple of years of during COVID and these super trying times, just emotionally, physically, socially, to have this outlet. I think parents seem to have really appreciated it, in addition to, of course, the participants. The kids are thrilled to be out riding with their friends. They don't necessarily realize that that it is so one-sided. Generally, the sport of mountain biking has been so male-dominated historically. They don't even realize that in Saratoga. Like the girls here have no idea that this is unusual, that we have 200 girls registering for an all-girls program and over 60 female mentors that are volunteering for the program. To them, that's normal because that's all they've known here in Saratoga. And I know as a previous, racer that, I was only lining up with 2 or 3 other women across the Northeast in these races where there'd be 50 men racing at that level right, in front of me. And so we're certainly not trying to get girls racing on top of podiums, but just that changing the face of the sport in that it's now normal for girls to participate in this traditionally male-dominated sport in Saratoga. So,
yeah, I love fun. That they have no awareness that it's not like
no.
That just makes my life complete. So, yeah. Anna, when you were a human child, like when you were little, who inspired you? I know you said you didn't get into mountain biking until you were not later, but until you were a little older. But what was your inspiration when you were little? Who inspired you?
Yeah, in terms of general inspiration growing up, I mean, my mom was certainly my main role model. She was an Ironman triathlete. So in the sporting world, Ironman triathlon distances are just incredible feats of madness, right? And, of course I didn't fully appreciate that when I was a child, but I understood that when I was at school, my mom was training all day long. And then she was parenting the rest of the day. Like
for anyone watching, just tell them what that is.
Sure. So triathlon is swimming, biking, and running in one event, transitioning from one to the other. And an Ironman triathlon is kind of the pinnacle of a lot of triathletes' careers, that you would complete an Ironman, never mind win an Ironman. So an Ironman is 2.4 miles of swimming. So that equates to, I believe, 75 laps in the pool, in a 20-yard pool, because I think I used to do it pretty regularly. And then 112 miles on a bicycle. And then after all of that, a marathon run. So this is an entire day of not just exercising, but racing at a high level. So the World Championships for this crazy event is in Hawaii, in Kona, Hawaii, on the Big Island, every year. And so my mom was in the top 10 for overall women in Hawaii Ironman 3 times in her career, 8th, 9th, and 10th. With a PR marathon of 2:44, not during the Ironman, but as a separate marathon.
I was going to say during the Ironman.
She did hold the record for the fastest run
so cool.
at Hawaii, like the fastest run leg for quite a few years. But so her, she and I are very different, but that work ethic, that dedication to something that she really just enjoyed doing, like she just loves to run, like that is her thing. And to see her out there and see her thriving and enjoying the sport that she was doing at a high level and really kind of groundbreaking at that time. There were not many other kids around. There were no other moms that were racing at that time at an elite level. Now it's a little bit more common for people in their 30s to be racing at a high level, but back then it was all 20 somethings and they were just racing. And we were the only kids on the sidelines cheering. So that was wonderful to watch those kind of barriers be broken when I was a kid. And for our norm to be following my mom's triathlons every weekend and cheering her on and having that support as a family. So she was really my main role model growing up.
I think she's now my new main role model in life. That is
and she's an archaeologist. So I think that I'm a geologist. I'm in a different science, but I think having, all that sense of like history and science-based stuff that she was doing growing up as an archaeologist for me, like having shell middens out in the dining room table, sorting through different shells that the Native Americans used on the Cape, because that's where we were living, was a really nice introduction to science too, and what you could do with science at an educational level. So.
This is just so incredible. And I think that just your background is so cool on the athletic side, but also on the geology side. Do you have someone who you consider to be like your life mentor in your past regarding either your career or biking or athletics?
Yeah. I've been very lucky to have a couple of mentors through my academic career, as well as now at Arcadis, which is a whole different career for me. I was able to go when I was doing field work in Antarctica. It was just myself and a field assistant. So it was just 2 of us camping for 3 months at a time in the middle of nowhere in Antarctica. So there was another field party near me my first season. And this woman called Jane Francis, she's probably 10, 15 years older than I am. And I was just out of my PhD. I was 27 years old, way over my head down in Antarctica, super excited, but had no, previous experience in it. And she had been going to Antarctica since women were allowed in Antarctica. Which was only since the 80s, remarkably, by the way. But anyway, so she was a really great role model for me in that very small world of female geologists in Antarctica, which, as you can imagine, is a very small world. She is now the director of the British Antarctic Survey. She is a dame. She's been knighted, and she's a professor. And she's a very good friend of mine that I'm hoping to catch up with next week when we're out there next week. Gosh. So she was an incredible mentor through my academic career, and someone to look up to. And then since joining Arcadis, I have had a couple of actually male advocates and allies in the organization that have been really great about helping me through the organization and navigating the different career that I'm in now with consulting and making space for women in this industry. So I've been very lucky to have those mentors, Dave Monk especially, who is a very good friend of mine in the industry. And then most recently, I have to shout out to Will Aldrich, who is kind of now my all-time role model or mentor, I should say. He's really, so Will Aldrich he currently is a YouTube executive, lives in California, but he was born and raised here in Saratoga and has really created some incredible opportunities for folks to ride bikes in our area, mountain bikes. So having created and built the trails at the Tupelo Community Forest in Greenfield in Saratoga County, and now trying to get bikes into curriculums in schools in Saratoga. And he's just one of those people that whenever I have a conversation with him, we just have, and you and I are very similar this way. Like we have a conversation with each other and we just like have all these ideas, and it's not just ideas, like it's talking about the next steps immediately and how to get those things done. And I think you and I and Will very much live in that same world of having these grandiose ideas and then making them happen.
Yeah, I feel like the best way to do amazing things in the world is to do them.
I'm in agreement with you.
Do them
Yes.
and set absolutely unrealistic deadlines in life. And then
Right.
sometimes you reach them. It's kind of
Right.
awesome. I really kind of want to circle back. I love that you've had, especially in this world of science, that you've had men who are advocates for you. And it, not that it isn't always this way, but it isn't always this way, especially like in the STEM track of careers. So can you just kind of like talk about this job that you're in now? How did you come to work for this company?
Sure. Yeah. Yes, I'd love to. So, was divorced about 5 years ago now, and knew that I needed to get into a new career, and was trying to decide what my next steps were in my career. And ideally, I would have loved to have jumped back into a polar research position here in Saratoga Springs, where I could, continue to do some field work and write my scientific, publications. But realistically, that just wasn't going to happen. There isn't a large research institute over here that I could have been part of, and the U.S. system in academia is very different than what I was involved with at the British Antarctic Survey. I was doing 100% research, no teaching, and given a lot of freedom that way, which I wouldn't have had the same freedom with here. So decided that academia probably wasn't going to be that path that I was going to take. I thought about being a high school science teacher because that would align with my two kids, who are now 10 and 12 years old. They're two girls at Caroline Street and Maple Ave Middle School. So I did some substitute teaching to see if that was something that I enjoyed doing. And I enjoyed aspects of it, but I certainly realized that I wasn't cut out for it. And I have a huge amount of respect.
That's a nice way of saying no.
Huge amount of respect, and to your point, gratitude for the teachers that we do have in place right now, because that is just not something that I thrive in. So, and then I was thinking more with my background in climate change science, like how could I make the most difference with my background without going back into academia? And I feel like there's two places where climate change wise, you can make a difference, right? Is at the government scale of changing the policy from the ground up, right? And I have zero political background or policy knowledge. Or you work for, a larger company in corporate America to make a difference at a larger scale across, other companies and other clients. So that's what I decided to try and do. That was my hope. But of course, I had no experience in this. So I was jumping in, with zero experience. My resume looked great because I had a PhD from Cambridge and, X amount of publications and things. And that's great. But honestly, I was a 40-year-old stay-at-home mom who had had a 10-year break in my career. And so any company was taking a huge risk in taking me on, right? So Arcadis luckily took that risk. I spent a few months just having like coffees and teas and lunches with folks of just like learning about different industries, because I just had no idea like whether I wanted to work in the policy world or in the consulting world or the science world, what that would look like. So I just had lots of sit down conversations with people, and they would give me other people to talk to in maybe similar or very different branches of career that I could pursue, right? So I decided through that process, and again, I talked to a bunch of different nonprofits in the area. I talked to a couple of different consulting firms, and landed on this one, Arcadis, and they took me on. They took that risk of taking me on, knowing that I had zero experience in consulting. As a geologist, it's not like an easy fit to make into an environmental consulting firm. And went from there. So I was hired in very junior, which was a very humbling experience. But I knew that I had to start somewhere, right? And again, had a very humbling first year of just saying yes to any opportunity that came across my desk, like literally, data analysis, spreadsheets, and like inputting things into Excel. Like, this is stuff that with a PhD in science, and it was a bit humbling to be going through that process. But at the same time, I knew I needed to do that to basically be caught up on, software as well as processes and the science that our particular office was involved in, right? And I didn't necessarily have the background in those sciences. So what I quickly learned was that there were quite a few transferable skills from my career in academia into anything else really, but especially consulting, where the simple idea of bringing a project from start to finish, right? It's just like I feel like I do a series of mini grad projects every day or every week at my current job. So it's doing the research, it's doing the background work, doing the research, collecting the data, speaking to the clients, coming up with a solution, doing the problem solving phase, coming up with a solution, and then, presenting that back to the client in a solution as a solution phase to it. And it turns out that I do enjoy speaking to clients. I do enjoy working through problems that aren't just necessarily, what is the glacial sediments of the Arctic regions of, it didn't have to be so specific. So I've been very lucky to find myself going down a career path within the company that's very sustainability related work 100% now. And our company does a lot of remediation, other types of work too, but I really tried to be strategic about who I was reaching out to I've been at the company for 3.5 years now. So who I was reaching out to in those early phases, getting involved in non-billable initiatives. So a lot of DE&I work, a lot of STEM projects at the company that, it was all unbillable work, but it made me have opportunities to speak to folks that are actually more senior in the company because they could see you were trying to make a difference. Mm-hmm. So sure, I was doing my project work too, but I was spending extra effort to further, the culture of the company. And so that other people would kind of notice that. And I would have those conversations with higher ups in the company because I had pursued those non-billable interests. So yeah, I've been very lucky to find myself where I'm now, but it certainly has had to be a fairly creative trajectory the last few years.
I am so inspired by hearing this because one of the, I guess, mantras of my life and my own work is to invest in what you love. And that doesn't mean money. Absolutely. It, for me, means the time that I have on this earth, and whether it is in the job that I have now with Palette, which I love and is amazing, and I get to invest my time in the empowerment of other women specifically, or in my volunteer work where I am able to invest my time in things that I love as well. Like I feel you, Anna. I think that you are right on with that. I kind of want to pivot to Shredders a little bit, and how does your identity as a woman play your role in that organization?
Yeah, I think it's critical to my role in the organization. I think if I was a man trying to build this community, it just wouldn't work out, honestly. And I think that for me, and I'm super grateful, I was lucky enough to be in the kind of right place and right time to build this thing, and to be having been a elite mountain bike racer in the last few years, right before starting Shredders. So having those connections to bike shops, to other families that ride bikes, to being a parent in the community already. So having access to all the schools and the parents that my kids play with, to all sorts of things. But it just lined up so well for there to really be some momentum within the community to make this happen. And, as we started the organization as girls only. I advertised in June of 2020. I called the DOH, the Department of Health, to see, I'd like to start this up, and I don't know, if this is the right thing to do. This is the protocols that we're going to follow. If you allow us to, as long as the girls are staying on their bikes, they're naturally socially distant, knowing full well that there's, nothing else happening for any kid right now, right, in June of 2020. So expecting full well to get shut down, right, and just for them to say no. And sure enough, they were just like, please do more of this. This is exactly what these kids need, socially and emotionally, of course, physically too, but it's really the social emotional side of things. And so, started it with 20 girls showed to the first ride, and then it basically doubled every ride after that, so that we had over 200 girls register for our first fall season of programming. So we went from 20 to 200 in a matter of a couple of months. And that level of growth, we wouldn't have been able to sustain that level of growth without also that parallel growth of the amount of female volunteer mentors that we had joining us. And that's where you and all of our now 80 something volunteer mentors that we have in the program come into place. Like, just so much gratitude for the children wouldn't enjoy this, the adults wouldn't enjoy this if there wasn't the ratio of mentors to riders that we have currently. And certainly in that time there wasn't pushback, but there were certainly questions about like, well, what do I do with my son? What do I do with Allison's brother when Allison's at practice at the ride? And so I certainly had to field those questions a lot, but decided, honestly, we didn't have the capacity to expand, right? There's no way we could have had more than 200 kids involved in the program. The trails couldn't have sustained it, and we couldn't have sustained it. So there was clearly enough interest from girls and their supportive families that we could keep it as a girls only program. And that's what we did. So I think being a woman leading that movement was essential in this particular case, to creating an environment where these girls and women felt comfortable coming to.
And it really is so empowering to see women leading girls who will someday be leading girls and who will someday be leading girls.
And that's been a really like an unintentional awesomeness that's come from the program is the growth of women riding mountain bikes, because more than half of the women that had joined us those couple of years really had only ridden around in their neighborhoods with their kids. They hadn't been into the woods at all. And so for the first time, they were riding as a sweep. So someone who rides behind the group will have a leader who's an experienced mountain biker in the front of the group. And then what we call a sweep is the person that's at the back of the group to make sure that everybody stays together. And so more than half of our sweeps were completely inexperienced mountain bikers, but they were showing up and learning along the way and playing that role of needing, we needed them to be there, but they could kind of learn some of the skills along the way. But then we also had sessions that were mentor only rides. So separate from the Shredder girls rides, we'd have weekend women only rides. And we created that space where these women would feel comfortable as total beginners coming to a brand new sport, some of whom were very young mothers who this is the first time they literally had left their kids with their partner, for example, at home, and were doing something for themselves, right? So I had so many of those conversations, like I'm at this point as a parent that I need to try to do things for myself too, and maybe this could be that thing. And the look and the feel that they had coming off the trails on those first rides was just, I'll never forget those particular experiences and seeing their expressions and their stories and their just thrill at having been out in the woods with another bunch of women learning to ride this new sport. So yeah.
Oh my gosh, I love it so much. So what advice would you give, like if you could give one piece of advice to Anna at age 21, knowing what you know now, what would it be?
Yeah. I guess a couple of things. I think we talked before, I forget the term you used, but pursuing the stuff that you're passionate about. And that's for the good or bad, that's what I've always done. And for the most part, that's always worked out. But I think it's so important to do what it is that you want to do, that you're interested in, that you want to spend the bulk of your time doing. Like, you make that your job. And I've been so lucky to be able to do that myself. And it sounds like you have as well, Marcella, which is, I'm just so grateful that you've also been able to follow that path. And it does take work, right? It's not just, these aren't opportunities falling into your lap. These are pursuing things that you want to be doing, but you have to make them happen, right? Yes. So
little swimming upstream.
Yes, upstream absolutely. Yeah. But I think the main thing is that also that you're, and I have many STEM conversations with different people in different companies that have this same vision, and that the degree that you get, or maybe you don't get a degree, but the degree that you get as an undergraduate doesn't necessarily define your path in your career, right? So sure, I still do a little bit of geology. I'm actually doing a super exciting project in Antarctica through Arcadis right now that does have a little bit of geology involved. But for the most part, I'm pursuing the things that I can use those tools that I gained, right? Like the scientific method and like writing a paper and those sorts of skills in the path that I want to move forward with. Same with shredders. Like, I'm actually using even those skills of how to speak to a lay person about the science that I'm doing. And like that interactive skill, that social skill that you obviously have as well, is like, that's almost more valuable than anything, being able to read the room, being able to understand who you're speaking to. And that to me has been more invaluable than anything in terms of the trajectory of my own career. So being excited about undergraduate degree, absolutely, as a young woman, and doing the degree that you'd like to do, but also recognizing that you can take that career path from there wherever you want to after that.
That is such good advice. And full disclosure, I am not doing what I have my undergraduate degree in.
What did you do your undergraduate in?
Writing and publishing. But what that gave me a foundation for is communication, connection, networking, storytelling, and talking to people, finding ways to communicate.
Really good.
Anna,
yes.
What do you want other women to know? This is like an Oprah question, so take a moment.
And I feel like I'm kind of cheating because I have 2 daughters, and so I'm always telling them what I want them to know. Right? It's like, so, but again, pursuing your passion and doing what the things that you want to do, and also that you can do anything you put your mind to. And it sounds so cliche, but like, if you want to do something and get something done, like, you figure it out and you'll get it. And it's such an amazing experience to realize that you can accomplish these huge dreams and these huge initiatives that seemed like a crazy idea, like this bike park, as you know, Marcella. We had 4 girls that came to the Saratoga Rec Commission monthly meeting in January of this year. So this is 10, 11 months ago now, pitched the idea of having a bike park in downtown Saratoga Springs to the Rec Commission, and the mayor was there as well. And now, 10, 11 months later, we have a design person that's designing the bike park. We have over $500,000 of money allocated to a bike park. We have a location for a bike park. And that was just out of this crazy idea that we wanted to break down more barriers, transportation barriers, to getting more kids on bikes by having an opportunity for them right downtown. So to show the girls that were participating in that 9 months ago, when we brought that idea to the board, that idea, nobody knew about that idea before January of this year. And they created this opportunity for other families in Saratoga to have this bike park in downtown Saratoga. So, showing them that their voice matters, I guess, is, I don't say things very short in few words. But yes.
Eloquent. It's okay to be eloquent.
Yes.
Eloquent. Okay. So the next question is, what is the interview question you've never been asked before, and what would your response be? But I'm going rogue. And what I want to ask you is something kind of related to mountain biking, but for me, it relates to life. Something that we all do on bikes is sometimes we fall off, sometimes we crash. And how do you get back up again?
That's awesome. That is such a good question. It's such like a hypothetical question, but also a very tangible question. In fact, I have like quite a few little scrapes from riding in Simba the other night. So I am no stranger to falling. And you and I have both had some falls this year. And those are very like jarring events, right? They're like physically impacting your body. And but that physical impact is so tied into your emotions too, and knocking your confidence, that it's really tricky, right? Especially if you're new to the sport, right? And that happens, and that's your fears that you might get hurt, and then you do get hurt. Like, how do you then get up and do that? So I think really having our group has, as Saratoga Shredders, both the girls and the women feel that when they do fall, like every other little girl in that group is saying, "Are you okay? Are you okay? Are you okay? Like, follow right behind me. And here's a Band-Aid, or here's some water. Would you like a snack?" And they're instantly kind of lifted up by the other girls and women around them. And whether they try that feature again, like, doesn't matter, right? But they've been lifted up by the others around them so that they know it's okay. They're going to be okay. And they can even be empowered to try that again, right? And then accomplish it. So I think being surrounded by, both physically and emotionally, to be lifted up by others around you, and especially in this lovely world of girls and women on mountain bikes, is really how we get up and go again. And certainly I've fallen when I've been by myself in the woods too, and it's, we get through it. But I think it's so much easier to be able to get up and try again and move on if you have another group of similar like-minded, both in age and experience, riders around you that can help you to move on from the fall that you've had.
Oh my gosh, I love it. I had a crash this year, and I was
No.
riding with third graders, and they all came, they dropped their bikes and they came running to me and they said, "Don't worry, we'll save you." They brought the band-aids, and like I was fine. But
Yeah.
just, you speaking to that community support, it extends beyond mountain biking, it extends beyond athletics, it extends into how we all live our lives and the people we surround ourselves with. And if we're going to surround ourselves with people who are on the same metaphorical path and are willing to help us up when we fall down, I think we're going to get a heck of a lot farther, right? Like
100%. Yeah. And I feel that every day with our community. Yeah.
It's so cool. So what do you have a unique special talent that is like all Anna, other than everything that else that you do?
I mean,
like, are you really good at
right
tap
now
dances? Like, what's your jam?
I don't have any weird obscure talents that I can think of right now. I feel like my superpower is like connecting people, and there are so many incredible initiatives going on in Saratoga for outdoor recreation, and I think having started a lot of them and being involved in a lot of them, I've been super lucky to just meet some incredible change makers in this town, whether that's at a city level, whether it's Carrie Werner as the state assemblywoman, Commissioner Jay Golub, who's advocated for a skate park all along, whether it's local business owners, whether it's donors that have been incredibly generous. Like, it's connecting all those folks and all those pieces to make some of those initiatives move forward. And so I feel like that's my special talent right now, is connecting other people.
And before I ask you kind of our last question, I also want to just mention that Saratoga Shredders is not just in Saratoga. So there is also a Shredders South and a Shredders North. The North Shredders is around the Queensbury area, and Shredders South, I think they ride in North Bethlehem, they ride in Thatcher Park, and I sense that this program is going to continue to grow.
Yeah, and I'm happy to just briefly, in general, our programming is a spring and fall regular programming. So we run a 8-week season in the spring, and then a 6-week season in the fall, because the light makes the season a little bit shorter. And then we have a series of 4 it's actually 8, because there's a morning session and an afternoon session. So 8 camps during the summer camps for mountain biking for kids. And then we'll be offering 2 summer camps up in Northern Vermont and Kingdom Trails this summer as well. But the fall and the spring programming is generally 2 days a week of rides. And we rotate between 10 different trail venues between Albany up to Queensbury. So as Marcella, as you just said, we have a girls only program in the Southern Trail Systems near the Albany area, a girls only program up in Gurnee and Rush Pond up in Queensbury. And then we have 2 large programs that are Saratoga based, one of which is a girls only K through 5 program, and the other program is a co-ed grades 4 through 12 program. So you can find out all about that on our website, which is www.saratogashredders.com. And then we also have 2 races during the year, every end of season. So end of spring season, we have what we call the Shredders Spring Send, which is a mountain bike race in the spa park just for kids. It's a kids only mountain bike race, open to everybody. And then also a similar events, which we call the Day of the Shred at the end of October every year. So those are the main things that we have going on in terms of programming with Shredders. And we always do, we offer scholarships and bikes to any child and family that comes to us with a need. We have plenty of resources to be able to provide full scholarships for children to join our programming, both the spring and fall, but also summer camp programming, as well as offering, we have a fleet of bikes that we can lend to or give to the child in need to participate in the programs. So just trying to remove as many barriers as possible for getting kids into this fairly cost prohibitive sport of mountain biking. And then in addition, we always try and do at least 1 outreach program per year. So that is a matter of raising money to buy a fleet of new bikes to give to a group of kids in need. And so that's varied over the last couple of years. We did one at the Schenectady Boys and Girls Club for our first outreach event. We brought 20 bikes to them for their after school program, ran a mountain bike skill session for them at their Boys and Girls Campus down there in Schenectady, and left the bikes with them to either take home with their families or to keep their Boys and Girls Club. This past spring, our outreach program was giving bikes to the children of backstretch workers here in Saratoga. So again, we bought 20 brand new bikes. We had our Shredders kids assemble them as kind of a STEM program for them. So they learned about the mechanics of bikes and how to put bikes together. Then we gifted all of those bikes to that organization to run a program for them in their camp there. And then this coming year, we have 2 initiatives going forward. We're going to be implementing Kids on Bikes program in Greenfield Elementary School, as well as the Stomping Grounds Summer Camp, which is in Middle Grove. We'll be starting a mountain bike program for them and building trails for them in the summer. So those are the programming initiatives, as well as the other outreach programs that we try to do.
Okay, so my last question for you today is, what piece of advice or what is the best advice you've ever received? And does it echo through your life? Like, what is your big best kernel of advice that you've got?
Yeah, and again, that's from, I was talking about my mentor, Will, the other day or earlier in this conversation, and the amount of times that I've had a conversation with him and he said, "Go bigger." I can't even count. And so that's always going through my head. Yes, it's great, this idea that you have in your head, but how can it be even better? Or not necessarily bigger, right? But how can you make it the best that it could possibly be? Whether that's, numbers of people, whether that's amount of money raised, whether it's the amount of organizations impacted. Go bigger, better.
Oh, Anna, please, anyone who is watching this, take that one with you, because I know I sure will. I really want to thank you so much for your time and your expertise. And I really am inspired. I think that especially just that last piece of advice, go bigger, like everyone should take it. We tend to not in life, especially as women. Again, this is Anna Lalaway. She's the executive director of Saratoga Shredders. She has been in the Antarctic as a human being. And like I said, I'm just so very grateful. I'm thankful to the YWCA for providing me with this opportunity to chat with you and to get the message of Shredders out to the Capital Region. My name is Marcella Hammer. As I mentioned, I'm the resident unicorn and COO of the Palette community. And I am also the MC of the upcoming Empowerment Awards with the YWCA of Northeastern New York. It's true, they're coming up on 3/23/23, and you can call me MC Hammer that day, and it will be accurate.
I'm delighted.
Thanks again, Anna, and I will see you soon. And thank you to this amazing audience, and again to the YWCA.
Thank you. Take care, folks.